So I didn't time myself on this, so I'm not sure how long this is going to go. I think there'll be enough time for us to share on this. Uh, in the meantime, there's a couple of items. First one is called Experience. As you see behind me, Experience has taught us. It's an introduction to the 12 to our 12 traditions. Heidi's going to post that into the chat. You guys can download that and read that as at your leisure. That's a AA publication. Really good material, and then I'll have another one in a little bit. So let me get my slide presentation up and running here. How's that? Can you see me all right? Excellent. All right, so let's talk a little bit about the 12 traditions and what. So where the 12 steps are focused on individuals, the 12 traditions are focused on the group as a whole. The 12 steps describe each of the actions that a person will need to take as an individual in order to recover from their addiction. By contrast, the traditions help keep the support group functioning and healthy. We have such a great group here tonight, and the service members of this group really are inspiring. This group of ours is one of thousands of AA groups worldwide. As a secular group, we have expanded the availability of the AA program to those like us that want no religious focus on recovery. But our responsibility to each other and to AA as a whole is the same. When we say that our responsibility is to assure that the hand of AA is to be there, what does that really mean? Without the guidance and adherence to the principles and traditions of AA, we are a rudderless society. Our message becomes diluted by personal opinions and personalities, and these traditions are our guidelines to the future of all AA groups. So first thing I want to talk about is the AA grapevine, because if you weren't aware, this is where our traditions were first disseminated to the public. And the AA grapevine was created by 6 AA members in the New York area, 4 women and 2 men. And with the blessings of AA's co-founder Bill W., they published the first issue in June of 1944, probably on D-Day, just 9 years after the founding of Alcoholics Anonymous. A copy of that first issue was sent to every AA group. There were about 300 at the time, and to all known AA members in the armed forces overseas. An entire page with the heading Mail Call for All AAs in the Armed Forces was devoted to letters from these members who began calling the grapevine their meeting in print. And that title stuck, and today the grapevine and Lavinia carry it on their covers. Acting as a senior advisor of the magazine, Bill W. wrote more than 150 articles in the AA grapevine between 1945 and 1970. His articles are collected in the anthology, The Language of the Heart. The preamble was written by a grapevine editor based on the foreword of the first edition of the Big Book. It was first published in the grapevine in June of 1947. The AA grapevine is entirely self-supporting through the sale of the magazine and related items. It receives none of the group contributions sent to general service. Although the traditions have become a cornerstone to Alcoholics Anonymous, this literature came after the writing and publishing of the Big Book. The 12 traditions of AA were first introduced by the founder, Bill W., who wrote a series of essays for our Grapevine magazine in April 1946. They were titled 12 Points to Assure Our Future. In 1947, pamphlets of Bill Wilson's words were sent to all members free of charge. This pamphlet was lengthy, totaling 48 pages. It wasn't until 1949, when the traditions were unanimously adopted at the first International Convention in Cleveland, and that it was suggested they be shortened. It was then that the 12 traditions began to resemble them as we know them now. They underwent years of revisions and adaptations to become the 12 traditions used in the current AA meetings. I also want to point out that on this grapevine that started with 6 members, how important it is for small little groups like us and what a big impact just a few individuals can make. Bill described these letters as a welter of exciting and fearsome experience. They played a key role in helping him develop the 12 traditions. The Grapevine published the traditions one by one from December 1947 to November 1948. In 1950, the first international convention in Cleveland adopted the 12 traditions. The traditions provided guidelines, not rules, that would help AA groups then and in the future. They addressed relationships with the outside world and within Alcoholics Anonymous itself. Today, AA groups continue to use the 12 traditions to strive toward that group ideal of unity. The groups continue to carry the hope to still suffering alcoholics around the world. This is from Bill, who wrote this in the Grapevine 1946. I offer these suggestions neither as one man's dictum nor as a creed of any kind, but rather as a first attempt to portray that group ideal toward which we have assuredly been led by a higher power these 10 years past. Here's a little copy of that Our Experience Taught Me from way back when, and some of the original writings and editing and trying to put this stuff together, because these are our traditions. The 12 traditions themselves and the purpose of the 12 traditions, they're grounded in spiritual principles of Alcoholics Anonymous, and they were quickly adopted as guidelines to help groups function. It served a dual purpose of providing practical framework for individual chapter autonomy and for preserving the unity of how the organization's purpose and message. The 12 traditions dictate the manner in which AA groups should operate. As such, 12 Steps and 12 Traditions, also known as the 12 and 12, states many of these suggestions in broad terms. But we as individuals must also embrace the 12 traditions in order to keep the groups afloat. Again, AA insists that they are not rules, but rather suggestions. Nonetheless, we often find that our sobriety hinges on our observation of the principles described therein. Should we stray too far from these principles, we find ourselves off the beam and vulnerable to a relapse. As is the case with many of Alcoholics Anonymous's literature and most things in life, they are up for personal interpretation. Bill Wilson himself saw how easily messages could be misconstrued by members, taking words or phrases out of context. The long form of the 12 traditions leaves little room for misinterpretation. However, since it is the shortened version that is widely proliferated and referenced in meetings, there are significantly more opportunities for misunderstandings. The key to interpreting and implementing the 12 traditions correctly means looking at the entirety of each sentence, rather than placing emphasis on certain phrases within the AA group. The AA group is an official Alcoholics Anonymous pamphlet that was created specifically to provide guidance for how to correctly apply these traditions. If you find yourself and fellow members in disagreement, that's a fantastic reference source. And I do have a copy of that for distribution, and I'm going to ask Heidi to put that in the chat for you guys to download. Something really interesting in that pamphlet, it's inventory, it's a group inventory. Here's what that pamphlet looks like. It's called The Group, where AA service structure begins. And there's a group inventory in that pamphlet that's very interesting. It asks a few questions. What is the basic purpose of our group? What more can our group do to carry the message? Is our group attracting alcoholics from different backgrounds? Are we seeing a good cross-section of our community, including those with accessibility issues? Do new members stick with us, or does the turnover seem excessive? If so, why? And what can we as a group do to retain members? Do we emphasize the importance of sponsorship? How effectively? How can we do it better? Are we careful to preserve the anonymity of our group members and the other AAs outside the meeting rooms? Do we also leave what they share at meetings behind? Does our group emphasize to all members the value of keeping up the kitchen setup and cleanup and other housekeeping chores that are essential for our 12-step efforts? And believe it or not, working with Zoom, we do have a lot of cleanup efforts. We have a lot of stuff that we do behind the scenes. Are all members given the opportunity to speak at meetings and to participate in other group activities? Mindful that holding office is a great responsibility, not to be viewed as the outcome of a popularity contest, are we choosing our officers with care? Are we doing all that we can to provide a safe, attractive, and accessible meeting place? Does our group do its fair share toward participating in the purpose of AA as it relates to our three legacies of recovery, unity, and service? What has our group done lately to bring the AA message to the attention of professionals in the community, the physicians, the clergy, the court officials, educators, and others who are often the first to see alcoholics in need of help? And lastly, how is our group fulfilling its responsibility to the seventh tradition? It's an interesting inventory. So each of the 12 traditions plays an important role in 12-step groups like AA. Such traditions ensure that the group as a whole can function effectively, which is vital for individual recovery. Living up to these principles takes work and dedication, but so does becoming a part of Alcoholics Anonymous. Like every part of the 12-step program, the journey begins with the first step, learning more and how the well-being of the group as a whole can play a role in your individual recovery. So here's our traditions, and this is the condensed version that they were talking about earlier. Number one, our common welfare should come first. Personal recovery depends upon AA unity. Two, for our group purpose, there is but one ultimate authority, a loving Goddess, who may express himself in our group conscience. Our leaders are but trusted servants, they do not govern. Three, the only requirement for AA membership is a desire to stop drinking. Four, each group should be autonomous, except in matters affecting other groups or AA as a whole. Five, each group has but one primary purpose, to carry its message to the alcoholic who still suffers. Six, an AA group ought never endorse, finance, or lend the AA name to any related facility or outside enterprise, lest problems of money, property, and prestige divert us from our primary purpose. Seven, every AA group ought to be fully self-supporting, declining outside contributions. Eight, Alcoholics Anonymous should remain forever non-professional, but our service centers may employ special workers. Nine, AA as such ought never be organized. It never is. But we may create service boards or committees directly responsible to those they serve. 10, Alcoholics Anonymous has no opinion on outside issues. Hence, the AA name not ever be drawn into public controversy. It doesn't say anything about private controversy. 11, our public relations policy is based on attraction rather than promotion, and we need always maintain personal anonymity at the level of press, radio, and films. 12, anonymity is the spiritual foundation of all of our traditions, ever reminding us to place principles before personalities. It's hard for me to talk about this without at least going into a brief on tradition one. I know next week we're going to have, it looks like Bridget is going to talk about tradition 1 and 2. So I just want to read this out. Our common welfare should come first. Personal recovery depends upon AA unity. That is the first tradition of Alcoholics Anonymous. Too many addicts and alcoholics try to recover in isolation. More often than not, they discover far too late that it simply can't be done. But through the power of fellowship and the 12 traditions, we can nurture our sobriety and recover successfully. In accordance with tradition one, we must give in order to receive. We want others to be there for us, which means that we have a responsibility to be there for others. And more importantly, however, we simply find no good in trying to go it alone. We are always stronger as part of a whole. Each member of Alcoholics Anonymous is but a small part of a great whole. AA must continue to live, or most of us will surely die. Hence, our common welfare comes first, but individual welfare follows closely afterward. And the power of two is greater than the power of one. So in closing, the traditions of Alcoholics Anonymous are just as important to our recovery within a group as the steps are to our personal recovery. So in sharing tonight on the overall tradition introduction, please ask yourself how you are doing being a part of the AA society, and are you doing your part in being more than an observer to recovery? And with that, I will stop my share and do it like that. And we're doing good on time, so we got plenty of time to talk about recovery. And if you had an opportunity maybe to download those pamphlets, you can use those as some crib notes as well. So